so people can see it, because we didn't share both the last time, and I think it's good if we share while the class is happening, because then more people are coming.
We're on live stream now. How do I share? Okay, I saw that share screen. Let me just test it, okay?
Sure.
And are you able to see the screen?
No, not yet.
The neuropsychology of learning.
No, not
Oh,
yet.
I have to say share. Give me just a second.
There is a button in the bottom of Zoom. This share screen.
Okay, let me do that. I did that share screen.
Can you hear me? I think we lost you.
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Jennifer, can you hear me? Or we just only lost Shankan, or it's my connection?
Can you see the slide? Okay. Are you able to see the slides? Hi, Jennifer, can you hear me? You're on mute.
Here I am. Hola.
Okay, great. Are you able to see the slides as well?
I can see both. See?
Okay,
yes,
so I'll stop sharing the slides and I'll share it later. How's that?
Perfect. You can also
everybody comes in.
You can also go in my profile if you want, Shankan, and share the class, so everybody can start joining from your friends also while we are on the class.
Good idea. I will do that.
Yeah, because then more people can see and benefit.
From your Facebook profile, Aliki?
Yeah, exactly. And
how
also
are the kids today, Jennifer?
Good. They're more entertained. I have a on, so maybe they'll stay on the other side of the house. We went for a walk today, everybody. The first time, all of us with our masks.
Nice. In the nature?
No, by the sea. A little bit by the sea and on the harbor, and then inside in the city a little bit too. And Italy's been softening down, calming down.
How is the situation there?
We're in phase 2. That's what it is. And so the morning was much busier. I went out this morning, and some of the shops have reopened, and little by little the bars are opening, but it's all just in like a window service, like a drive-through, so people would come up to the windows and get their coffee like that. It's surreal, but better than nothing.
Of course. How is Mexico, Shankan, for now?
So far, it's very good. They have now gone into full, quarantine or lockdown. So we are only allowed to go out for groceries and for like medicines and things like that. But they don't enforce it as strictly. There are a few shops here and there that are open, groceries, definitely basic needs. But other businesses are all kind of closed down. I heard that in Mexico City, there are a lot of people who are, the hospitals are full, but I haven't looked at the numbers.
It's a shame. Yeah, it's probably going to be hard to keep that one under control. Mexico City is chaotic.
Yeah. But the city itself is very quiet. Nobody on the streets.
Good.
Yeah. It's been like that for about a month now. Even without too much government pressure, people realized that they had to take care of themselves. When they saw people coming back from USA in bad shape, quite a few people returned from US, and then they became much more alert. I'm checking if my posting went through. I shared your post.
Check. So Roshni told me that she's going to be arriving a little bit later, like 20 minutes later. But she will be there very soon.
She has a lot on her plate, that gal.
Like always, right?
Right.
So should we do, Shankan, what do you feel? Should we do a small recap of the last class before we start?
Do that.
Like just a reminder.
Yeah, I'm sending this out to a couple more groups and then we'll start. Is that okay?
I lost Aliki. She froze.
I'm sending it to Rehan's group as well. And I think in a minute we should be ready to go. Share to group. Okay, I'm all set. I sent it out, and I'm going to share the slides, and we'll do a short recap. I won't go right from the beginning, and then after the recap, we can start with some sort of a meditation. Aliki, your mic is on mute if you want to speak, just to be
Sorry,
sure.
I didn't realize that. I was just telling you that just today I'm on mobile phone internet. If my internet goes down, please continue because I'm just reconnecting back automatically. But the Zoom is not gonna fall, it just continues.
Okay. Great.
And maybe we can do a small reminder summary of what we did last week so everybody kind of refreshes their mind. And then we do a short meditation. And then we start with today's class. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm going to start with sharing the slides. Let's see if that works. Are you able to see the slides?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we talked about how do we change certain habits? Because as we said, initially the changes start in the short-term memory when you learn anything new.
So Shankar, there is a weird message that is appearing in front of your computer, the backup and sync from Google. Do you want to quit that so we can see the whole screen?
Oh, let me see. Where is the backup Google? I don't see it. Where do you see? What does the message say?
It's a backup and sync from Google message. Probably you have to quit sometime when.
That's weird. I don't see it anywhere on my screen.
I don't see it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. On my screen. I'm so sorry. I thought it was on your screen, but it was on my screen.
So let me go back to the meeting. And I don't know, how do I go back to the meeting?
What do you mean?
I don't know how to go back to the meeting. I'm looking at.
We're seeing at your.
Are you able to see the slides?
I do see. I can see the first one of neuropsychological of learning.
I'm not able to see it. That's why somehow it has gone into.
What are you using, Mac or Windows?
Laptop, not Mac.
It should be somewhere minimized, I guess, right?
It has been minimized. Yeah, exactly. Okay, are you able to see it now?
Yes, we see it.
So we're going to summarize, starting from this slide, the neuropsychology of learning. As we said earlier, learning essentially changes neural structures. But first, it does it in like almost 3 steps. The first thing is when you get excited about a subject, when you're learning something, there are chemicals that are going on that will start, movements in the brain. And the first thing that happens after that is that it goes into short-term memory. In the short-term memory, you will remember things like what we're discussing right now, but it has to move from short-term memory to long-term memory. And this is where the real learning is. So, for example, if I'm in a happy state right now, that's nice because somebody told me a joke, or I'm feeling good about the weather, or my children are doing well. So that is the happy state. The question is, how do you go from the happy state to the happy trait, which means how does that become a long-term change in my body chemistry? This is where it goes from activating a state of happiness or activating a state of joy or activating a state of calmness to installing that state to make it a trait. In other words, there are personality changes that will happen. Okay, any questions before I proceed? Otherwise, I'll go through a couple of slides, and after that, we'll start with all the new things today. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, so inner strengths are grown from experiences. First, we activate them using new experiences, and then over a period of time, as these experiences deepen, they'll get installed as new traits. Okay, so what are the traits? Let's look at some of that. I'm trying to see if I can move it properly. I'm still new to this. Let me see if I can move it. Okay, this is how it is, but you're able to see most of it, right?
I see the inner strength. And,
Yeah, so let's go to that. Inner strengths are grown from experiences, initially activated states, and then over a period of time, they'll get installed as new traits, personality traits. So initially, we become more compassionate. How do we become more compassionate? By initially installing the experience of compassion. For example, as we did last time, if we start looking at all the challenges people in our neighborhood are feeling, we've been hearing more and more about people in the hospital. Then we look at all the doctors and the nurses who are supporting them, in fact, taking a lot of risk to their own lives. And if we just think about it for a few seconds, and if we feel it in our heart, we're going to realize that we want all of them to be successful. We want them to recover. We want the doctors and nurses to be able to support them. We also want the people who are researching new medicines to be successful so that we can get vaccines. We want mothers who are taking care of the children at home. We want fathers who are making sure that things are done, taking care of things at home, or those who are taking care of our traffic, the police, law and order. We want all of them to be in a state of harmony. This is how we feel compassion. And when we feel compassion again and again, it installs compassion in a more durable way. If we feel gratitude towards all these people who are doing good things, then we'll have experiences of gratitude that will over time make us a grateful person. If we are aware of what's happening in our neighborhood, if we are aware of all the people, all the things, maybe nature, anything that we care for in our immediate vicinity, then we become a mindful person. So this is how it goes step by step. So most experiences of inner strength are actually enjoyable. When we start feeling strong from within, irrespective of what's happening outside, we start feeling good about ourselves. Now, why do we feel good? Because they are good for us and good for others. So this is where the shared experience comes in, whether it's compassion or gratitude, or it's being mindful. We're not just doing it for me. I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it for we. I'm doing it for us. So it's happening in the vicinity with other people. And that's where the shared experiences come in. So now we'll talk about what prevents us from installing or activating and installing these kinds of experiences. Before that, maybe we should do some meditation. So I'm going to stop sharing these slides, and this is where we begin today. What stops us from, being successful at installing these good habits? So before we do the meditation, Aliki, should we actually share the homework? We had given the homework to people to share what they have been doing in their life to be happy, to be joyful. And if they do it deliberately, have they seen a change in the last 1 week? Should we start with that?
Sure. Jennifer, would you like to start about one thing that you're doing in your life and you see the differences?
Yes. Well, the Deepak Chopra, the 21 Days of Abundance. So I have been practicing that as well, using meditation, writing down the tasks and affirmations, and it's been very helpful.
Is there any one practice in that, Jennifer, in the 21 days of meditation? Is there any one specific practice that you like?
Well, the abundance one is just because there was certain days that had made me say certain things and ask the universe for certain things and really just verbalizing and doing that and writing them down, I was able to just say, okay, I'll just go start ahead because I want to open my own business. So I've been having a lot of stuff on the back burner because of the situation, because of these circumstances that we have nowadays. And I said, but that's okay, I'll still go for it anyway. So I've been doing some of that and starting to look into the business that I've always dreamed of doing, because I just feel very positive now. Why not?
And
so it's been helpful.
If I may ask, it's only 4 of us right now, so you have a little more time.
Sure.
Would you share an example of abundance practice that you're doing, like the meditation itself? If it takes like 2-3 minutes, please do that.
Yes, it was, well, it's when we say in Sanskrit, so he would say different days, Om, and I can't remember the exact words. I'd have to look at my book. Om Naham. I'll mess them up. I'll say it wrong for sure, and I'll be embarrassed.
Just say it in English. That would be fine.
It's just abundance, and just asking in bliss, and asking the universe, and just repeating those for 5-7
affirmations.
And exactly, but I've been actually saying them with each breath in and out, and it's been wonderful. I finished, I feel like a goddess. Great. Cleansing, really.
That's great. That's great. Is Nazia on? I think her video is off for some reason. Aliki, you're on mute. Would you like to share any practice you do on a regular basis? Aliki? I see that.
She freezes too.
Oh yeah, she's frozen too. Okay, so I guess it's my turn then. So I'm going to share one of the practices very similar to what Jennifer just said is about wishing people well. We always start with friends. It's much easier to give, may you be happy to friends in our life. So I'm going to wish to the people who I care for, to my children, my son who is in New Jersey, my daughter who is in the UK, my wife who is in India. May you be happy. May you be relieved of any pain, any anxiety created by the current situation. May you feel loved. May you, even with all these distances, may you feel the warmth in your heart and the closeness of your friends and family. And then we slowly open it up. We always start with friends and family because it's easier.
And
then I'm going to wish my friends who are in various places, especially in India, the situation is getting worse in places where I was living the last few months. So in Gujarat, Baroda, in Ahmedabad. So I'm going to start wishing those people. Hi, Roshni. Thank you for joining us. So each one of us is doing a little bit of the practice we are doing, any practice, and what gives us joy. So this is a practice that I practiced about 8 years ago at the Center for Compassion. It is a secular version of practices that come from many religions. It's about feeling gratitude and wishing well. So I started with my immediate family, and now I'm going to expand to the people that I lived around. So I grew up in Bombay. As you know, certain areas of Bombay are going through a very difficult time right now in the Dharavi area, as well as in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad and Baroda, where I currently have been living the last 3 years. So I'm going to wish each one of them, may you come out of your misery. May you not be affected by the virus. And if you are, may you find a way, may you get the help you need. May you find the doctors, the nurses, the therapists, the friends who can support you in your journey. Again, my friends in San Francisco have been going through their challenges, and some in New York, and some in Italy. So again, I'm going to slowly expand my consciousness or my awareness to all these people. My friend Momo is in Paris, and my friend my friends in San Francisco, George and Shino, everyone is going through those challenges. Everybody is living a little more congested. Kids are back home. They're working and cooking and eating and sleeping in a similar area, right? They cannot go out to work. So may you find that sweet spot. May you be happier. May you not have the difficulties, the miseries that come with the infections. And if you have been tested positive, may you still find that gentleness within you. May you not be disturbed by, concerns about the future or the past, and stay present. So we start with friends and family and then slowly expand it to people we don't know. Like those people who don't have homes, like those people who are required to work, but they may not be in great shape. And then we expand it to people we don't even like. We expand it to people who we consider not our friends, not even neutral, but people who want to avoid. Like in some cases, that could be mother-in-law, that could be anybody, So the reason is this helps me feel gratitude, joy, compassion within myself. Whether it reaches them or not is the next thing. We don't know. But one thing is for sure, when I cultivate these habits, it calms me down. It brings me back to my ground. By wishing others well, at least this Shankar wishes well, and anybody who is in touch with him, like you all are listening, hopefully you will feel that. Some people may think, oh, he's faking it. Yeah, that can happen. But we cannot, there is more control over this mind, this body. So we start from here and then slowly expand out. Sometimes wishing ourselves well is hard. So after we do it with friends and family, then we go to, may I also feel joy. May I be free from pain. May I not get the virus. And if I do, may I recover from it. May I find the support I need. And the reason is it's been shown through many, many examples, especially in industrialized areas, in the big cities, people have difficulty feeling self-compassion. They feel that they're not strong enough, they're not good enough, and so on. So that's my little bit of 5 minutes of describing my practice. We've got Roshni here online, and Aleki has been there since the beginning, but oh, you're there. We have to look at you.
She's on the second screen. Yes. I had to move to this here.
Just and we've got Nazia. Roshni coming back. So hi, Nazia and Roshni, welcome. I didn't want to interrupt Shankar before. Thank you for being here.
Yes, who would like to, Nazia, would you like to talk about any practice you do that makes you happy, that brings you back to yourself, anything? And please unmute your mic. You're on mute. We cannot hear you yet. Your mic is muted. Your microphone, okay, perfect.
Yeah, okay. Okay, actually I'm taking the session first time live. Last time I've taken, but I can't fully speak in English, but I'm trying to speak in English. Secondly, the last session I have joined was very good. That was really impressive. Now this session is also hope so good for me and for my mind also, as the topic was about the hope or to change something in life or to remain happy or something. So we are trying to cope up with all these, but if we are talking about the hope, so we can take hope from anywhere, I think, or I can't speak too much as I'm really confused.
So Nazia, you're doing it. You're already actually speaking. Any particular thing you do? For example, this is the month of Ramadan. Are you doing any kind of prayer or naad, anything that helps you feel good, helps you stay grounded, helps you feel gratitude? Any particular practice you're doing on a regular basis? And you can speak, I think it's okay to speak in Urdu and I can translate.
I'm a housewife, plus I'm also a working woman. ओके मैं एक्चुअली एक हाउसवाइफ भी हूँ और जो है एक वर्किंग वूमन भी हूँ सो मैं एक स्कूल में एज ए एफटीओ वर्क कर रही हूँ मॉर्निंग में मेरी मुझे जाना होता है 4 आवर्स के लिए आफ्टर दैट जब मैं आती हूँ घर पे तो घर के काम है तो
I'll
मतलब ठीक
translate
है
that. Is that
माइंड
okay?
रिलैक्सेशन के लिए अगर मैं कहूँ आपसे
So Nazia says that she works, she has an office, she has a job. Also, she is a housewife. So she has to take care of things at her home, children and family. Also, she has things at the office. So she uses certain techniques about for mind relaxation, and Nazia is going to tell us about it. Acha, please go ahead.
Mostly what I do is as you say that it is a month or holy month and we pray so the best thing is we pray and we recite the Quran. This is the best way for mind relaxation and whenever I think that I'm really tired of or now I want some break so I work move towards the prayer time or recitation Quran. Mostly I take part in these things for mind relaxation.
Great, great.
As you can hear, hope you can hear, it's Azan time in Pakistan.
Oh, it is Azan time right now. Do you have
It's
to go for your
Isha's
prayer?
time. Yeah, Isha prayers time.
Okay,
Yeah, but
great.
right now
If you need to
I
go,
can.
please go ahead and come back and join us there.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. See you soon.
We can also do our small gap and we all like meditate while Naja is praying. So we can combine
Yes.
like different modalities.
Yes.
I think it's
Yes.
important.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter what it is, if it's meditation or if it's prayer. In the end, it's the same goal and the same reasons we are doing it.
Yeah, I have a suggestion, Aliki, since this group has been created mainly for women and with the intention of awakening the divine feminine. Um, it is very common for us to see the spirit as well as the holy in masculine terms, which is very common. Anywhere in the world, you think of Krishna, you think of Allah, you think of Jesus Christ, or any, mostly it is in masculine terms. If possible, since we are trying to awaken the divine feminine, also think about the mother, the divine mother that gave birth to the world, that gave birth to the universe. So we could do it in silence, but my suggestion, and this is not required, is to see the divinity that comes in feminine form, which gives birth and which nurtures and which takes care from the time when we are born or conceived all the way till even after we pass away. The mother never gives up on her children. So that's just a suggestion.
Totally, and we can all like start feeling the earth and start grounding because it's the bigger mother, and take some moments to just connect with closed eyes. you can start slowly coming back, reconnecting to our classroom and our very kind instructor for today. Bring yourself into the current moment. Start breathing a little bit faster. Start reconnecting with your physical body. You can take some deep breaths and bring back yourself into waking awareness. And whenever you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes and come back to our session. Shankar, you will have to be gentle. The move to the neuroscience will have to be gentle now.
Yes. So Roshni, are you awake? Are you with us? So far, Jennifer and Nazia shared what they do. Aliki and Roshni, both of you, I would like you also to share in short. Roshni, would you like to share? Your mic is on mute, so unmute yourself, please. And would you like to share any practice that you've been doing to bring yourself back to yourself and also to bring to joy, happiness, calmness, anything?
Yes. So aside the fact of meditation, Vipassana meditation, and that is one thing that has been with me constantly for some time. But I've been doing a lot more of a breathing exercises. So just observing and trying to extend longer and longer times. So starting with 10 seconds breathing in, 10 seconds breathing out, and then raising those increments to 15, 20, almost 30, breathing in, 30, breathing out, because I have this thing with overreacting. When I get to, I'm very, very good to a certain point. And then when something doesn't go right, I overreact. And then I get exactly 10 steps behind from where I was. So I'm working on things now to, is specifically for that moment of overreaction. And it happens in the breathing. When I'm breathing out for an extended period of time, you tend to want to just stop and breathe in. And so this is really working on that moment of where I really want to overreact and breathe in, but no, staying controlled. And also, so maintaining control. Another thing I just started Monday, actually, after I did a fast on Sunday, I just did a fast of the whole day with just water. Fasting has always been in my family for a very long time, but since I've been a kid, I have never done it. So I haven't done it in a really long time. So Sunday was a little more extreme, just water. But now starting Monday, I'm doing the one where you don't eat from 8 p.m. until noon. And yes, that's another point where it's when you feel hunger and you want to just overreact and going and eating, saying, okay, controlling. And then even that moment of when 12 o'clock comes, not overreacting. So I've been working a lot with control and overreaction through those.
You don't eat for 16 hours, starting from 8 p.m. all the way to the next day noon. Wow.
Yes.
Cool.
16,
I should try that sometime.
Yeah, it's a Japanese guy won a Nobel Prize for this, and it's really good for the body to have those hours of non-digestion. And so it's really, there's many different things that it helps.
Oprah does that too, I think. Doesn't she say she doesn't eat after 8 o'clock? The body digests at night. So that's Ashley Judd or something.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I can't believe you didn't eat on Sunday in Italy, though. That's a crime.
It's okay.
Sunday's a feast day.
Yep.
What is it called?
It's like a feast. People eat all day on Sunday here.
That's a different kind of meditation. So, Roshni, if you can do it for like a minute or two, would you like to walk through the breathing exercise, the rhythmic breathing that you do, so that all of us kind of get a flavor for it?
Absolutely. First, I will ask to put your left hand where you're around your heart area, and your right hand on your belly. And just breathe first normally. close your eyes and breathe normally. We're not doing anything, just naturally breathe. Now I want you to observe what happens to your hand when you're breathing in, your right hand. When we're naturally breathing, when we are breathing in, our stomach is expanding. So your right hand is expanding out. Keep that in mind, that we breathe from our stomach and not only from our chest area. So now I'm going to count. We'll start with 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. So take one deep breath in, everybody. And exhale. Inhale from the nose. Exhale from your mouth or nose. Inhale from your nose. Feel your stomach expand, then the middle, then your chest. Exhale, feel your chest, then your middle, then your stomach. Inhale. I'll make it a little longer this time. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Last one, we'll try for 10 seconds. Inhale. And exhale. On your next inhale, to make 10 seconds, make sure you start from your stomach. Inhale. And exhale. Okay.
Are we done, Roshni?
Yes. My
Great,
exits
great.
are not that great. Yeah.
One reason I suggested we do these is because there's a lot to be said about shared experiences. This is an individual practice. What you did specifically is an individual practice, or even the meditation I do, or the abundance practice that Jennifer does. They're all individual practices. But when we share in a group like we are, it becomes a group experience. We have this whole mirror neurons. We have all these shared experiences that brings all of us, when we breathe together, our breathing synchronizes first. And then over time, our heartbeat also synchronizes. Even though we are at a distance, I can tell you, if our breathing, that's how the whole theory behind rhythmic breathing. We breathe a certain way, or if all of us are wishing kindness to our friends and family, then it changes the way we see the world. And if all of us are doing it together, it becomes a shared experience. There's the secretion of oxytocin in each one of us. There's that deep connection we feel. That's the reason when you go to church or you go to temple or even a political rally, we clap together. Let's do that if you don't mind. Aliki, would you like to share any? Would you like to share any of your practices in one practice?
Sure. It's also a type of meditation. I'm trying to maintain the connection, so I'm always trying to ask for reconnection when I feel that I'm getting a little bit disconnected due to either a lot of work or a lot of technology, and just bring back in the aspect of being in conversation with something higher, with something beyond. So I always try to do a little bit of some minutes of connection. Sometimes they're through meditation, sometimes they're through just being outside in the nature. Right now, I'm just looking at a wonderful full moon. Maybe you can see it.
Oh, wow. You're able to see the full moon.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
It's already nighttime in out there in Asia. Wow. By the way, did you know this moon is considered the full moon of Buddha Jayanti? The day,
Tonight?
the once a year, it's the day when the full moon of the blossoming of nirvana or consciousness in Gautama the Buddha.
Oh, nice.
So
I was wondering.
those of us who are into Vipassana or any kind of meditation practice, it's just time to say thank you, Mr. Buddha. He never claimed to be a god, but he claimed to be somebody who was able to find his way to nirvana or letting go of the miseries in life. So very interesting. So connecting with the moon is, I do that. I do moonwalking and sunrise, sunset, and sometimes sky. Can you explain to us, Aliki, when you do this practice, what happens in you, how it shifts your consciousness?
Interesting, right? Difficult to explain sometimes these things. So there's a specific moment that you start feeling that your own being or your material being is getting more dissolved or minimized at least, and it's a feeling of awe and it's a feeling of connection actually, and then you realize that you have established back like the conversation, let's say.
Yes.
And that's the time you can also ask for guidance, you can ask questions, you can really try to understand what the next moves or the current moves or the current state.
And Aliki, if I may say so, this is exactly the reason we were doing it. First, to have that shared experience and to explain some of these things in neuroscientific terms or psychological terms. So when we are looking at that higher consciousness, as you described it, essentially what's happening is this expression or the emotion of awe, the experience of awe. Now, awe is really awesome. When we feel that awe, normally we are feeling, I am me, there are certain things in my control, there are certain things not in my control. And I don't know what to do. I cannot go out of the house. So there's that, the chatter in the brain. When there's that moment of awe, when say Aliki is looking at the moon and just wondering, wow, look at that full moon. And she's this experience of awe. It takes us to that higher space where we are connected not only with the misery, the sympathetic nervous system comes down. If there's any amygdala hijacking, we'll get into that today. The next few slides will talk right about this topic.
Then if you want, you can share the slides if you want.
Yes, we'll do it right now. Okay, but just keep it in mind, the feeling of awe, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of compassion, the feeling of forgiveness, letting go of things, baggage that we are holding on to. Some of these things relax my part of the brain that kind of keeps us like tight, like in that flight, fright, or freeze, and it generates the connection with the world. So we'll go into the slides right away. Thank you for sharing, and I'm so grateful that each one of us shared our experiences and what we've been doing. And if you're able to see the slides, let me know.
I'm fully with you. My video will be off, but I'm fully with you. Just there's some.
Great. Yeah, anyone wants to switch out the videos, that's perfectly fine right now, because we're going to go through the slides. Hopefully you're able to see the slides either on Zoom or on Facebook. So the question is, we have all these intentions. Is everybody able to see the slides? Aliki, are you able to see the slides?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Maybe I've not shared it then. Let me check. Okay, is it sharing now? Yeah?
Not yet.
Okay.
The missing link, I see that one.
Great, great. Okay. So, so the question is, what's missing? How are we able to cultivate these states? And then how will we take these states and make them traits? So the challenge is this wishing that we should be happy is everybody does that, right? Without installation, there is no learning, no change in the brain. We know that. We have to somehow cultivate these habits, like what Jennifer was doing in that moment of meditation, feeling abundance, or what's her name? I forget names now. I'm blanking out.
Nazis.
Sorry?
Nazis?
Yes, what Nazia was talking about
Nazia.
yeah, about reciting the Quran and doing any kind of prayer, or the lady from the UK, what's her name? I just don't remember names. I'm blanking out. Let me see if I can see names now. Everything is a little slow here. Let me stop sharing so at least I can see everybody's names. Okay, so yeah, Roshni told us about her practice, which is rhythmic breathing, as well as, the practice of, the longer and longer rhythmic breathing, which we practice together. And Aliki's practice, which is the practice of seeing awe in something higher, maybe watching the moon, watching any object or anything that seems to represent a much higher feeling. So now when we do these things, it seems to switch us from our day-to-day, hurtful feelings into a much more Unitarian, something that connects us with other things around us. So let's see what stops us. Why is it that we're not able to do it many times? So we're good at activation, but we are bad at installation. This is the most common problem that we face. We're good at starting a meditation. Many of us have done that, right? Maybe 1 hour a day, maybe 10 minutes a day. But the thing is, it does not become a continuous trait. And the fundamental weakness is we don't have enough resources, or sometimes we may need therapy, sometimes we may need more serious training in mindfulness. So even in therapy, it has been shown that the therapy that seems to work during the time of therapy, if anyone has gone to a therapist, during that 1 hour, 2 hour, we feel good. But on our way back, suddenly we go back to our old life or day-to-day life. We are back again in all the problems that we are facing. So it doesn't always seem to work. What's the reason for that? The painful, harmful experiences tend to linger on much longer. In other words, the joyful experiences, the feeling of awe, the feeling of calmness, the feeling of the rhythmic breathing, the feeling of gratitude, they seem to be fleeting. And so just be careful when you listen to this. These things seem to be short-lived, whereas the grudges we have, the anger we have, the anxiety we have, they seem to linger on much longer. Now the question is, why is it? Is there something fundamentally wrong with our brain? The answer is no, but we do have something called the negativity bias. In fact, my friend calls it ants, automatic negative thoughts. It's like there's an ant in our brain, which is that we tend to think about the negatives much more frequently. The question is why? The reason is this. As you know, as we were evolving as a species and becoming human, or any animal for that matter, what is the biggest challenge? Survival. So our ancestors did everything they could to avoid the sticks and then get the carrots. In other words, we always scan for bad news. Right now, that may mean we're scanning for news about the coronavirus, and particularly in our neighborhood, and particularly among the people we know the best, maybe our community. So we tend to scan for bad news first, and then we over-focus on it. I think Roshni said that there are times when she gets overwhelmed or goes too much and then cannot get back to that balance. By the way, Roshni, your experience is not just Roshni's experience. This is a common shared experience. It's common humanity. Each one of us is in our own ways tends to over-focus on something negative in our life and overreact to it. And then we install it in our immediate memory right now, and we sensitize the brain to the negative. And then not only do we sensitize it to ourselves, we even sensitize it to people around us sometimes. When, sir, did you know this happened today? That went wrong. So what happens as a result is that we've now created we're reinforcing the negativity. And now the question is again, why? Why do we do it? And how can we get out of this habit? Or what should be the right approach? Okay, so this negativity bias means that bad experiences stick like Velcro. It's hard to get rid of bad experiences. So anybody watching this, if you think, oh, I'm such a negative person, you're not alone. This is a very, very common experience, at least among all human beings. And even animals, if they've had any bad experience in their childhood, they will run away from it. A dog, for example, that's a rescue dog that has almost a truck ran over it. Anytime that dog sees a truck, it'll be like barking, running, scared. Most of the animals that have had rescue animals, they tend to get very offensive, defensive with strangers. So the negative balance is true for almost all mammals, and definitely for human beings, it's the lived experience. Good experience, on the other hand, are like Teflon. They don't seem to stick. For example, that moment of awe when you look at the moon, it's like great. We will even think of beautiful poetry or, romantic songs, whatever. But it doesn't seem to stick. Even the taste of chocolate, it lingers on for a few minutes, maybe a half an hour, and then the chocolate taste is gone, and it's time to brush our teeth. So the question is, what do we do? Given the scenario, that negative experiences tend to really stick with us like Velcro, and positive thoughts, positive experience, positive emotions tend to be fleeting, or they don't seem to stick. What should we do? The brain is good at learning from bad experiences, but bad at learning from good ones. Even though learning from good experiences is the primary way to grow resources in the mind. In other words, we have to put extra effort to learn from our good experiences. That's why those who are into mindfulness practice, you may realize that the mind wanders all the time. And we have to bring it back again and again and again. So it requires a lot more practice. Those of us who do any kind of work, even cooking, cleaning, when we're doing the cooking, these days I've been cooking. It makes me very happy. Afterwards, again, I'm back to my miserable self. So how do we reinforce these good experiences and good thoughts? Or it's not to say that we should get rid of the bad. We are always learning from our negative experiences. We're always learning to go beyond negativity. The question is, what do we do with positivity? So here the green dots the red dots represent the negative bias. They're deep within us. Whereas the green ones, they're there and they actually make us feel good. But they seem to wander around. They seem to kind of go away from us. So Stone Age brain, let's look at the history of human life or history of life itself. We are in the 21st century, but we are still thinking like we're in the Stone Ages. We are still worried about the risks, the dangers. Right now, coronavirus is a real danger. So it's a real example of something that we worry about. So what should we do? We should find ways to take charge of our brain. If I'm going fast, please let me know. I can always slow down or I can explain anything that may be missing. Is there any questions so far?
No.
Okay, so how do we take charge of our brain? So we have to get the good stuff that is around us and we have to really, really appreciate it and really bring it into our brain, into our heart, into our lived experience. How do we do that? So when you have a good experience, enrich it. And then make sure, how do you enrich a good experience? Let's say, for example, let's take Aliki's example of watching the moon. When she's watching the moon, she's feeling the fullness of the moon, the fullness in her heart or in her own being. So she can make it longer by increasing the duration. She can make it more intense by really focusing on the positive thoughts and positive feelings she's getting. It can be multimodal. It may not be just looking at the moon, but it may be feeling the air around. It could be more things, all the five senses. It could be the novelty. Each day the moon or the object she's looking at is looking different. No two viewings of the moon are the same. It's the salience. So in other words, there are many ways in which we can enrich the experience. Let me just take another one, which we all did together, which was Roshni's thing about rhythmic breathing. She started with saying, just watch your breath. Then she said, okay, now hold your hands, one on the heart, the left hand on the heart, and the right hand on the tummy area, right? The gut. And then she said, okay, slowly start breathing longer. Slowly start taking longer breaths. Longer in breath, longer out breath. So she increased the duration. Then she said, okay, now feel the fullness of the belly. Is your belly getting completely full when you take in breath? Is your chest getting full? When you're breathing out, is your heart area, the chest getting empty? Is your belly getting empty? She increased the intensity. She used multimodality also. Not only was she asking us to breathe, which is feeling the breath, also she's saying, look at the touch, your left hand, the right hand. And for many of us, this was a novel experience. We may not be doing this every day. So it makes it a much richer experience. I probably ask people to share what they felt about this after a few more slides. How does novelty help? Like in the case of awe, feeling of awe, which Aliki explained. Or in my case, for example, feeling joy, feeling kindness, feeling compassion, even for people we don't like, even for people we even hate. After taking care of my family, my friends, the neutral, then my own self, may Shankar be happy. Then we say, may everybody be happy. And that includes people I don't like. This is where there's the novelty and there's also the connectedness with the whole world. So let's look at more such things. We first start with having a good experience. Any experience could be cooking, could be meditation, could be observing something in nature. We enrich it, and the different techniques for enriching are increase duration, increase intensity, do it well, more of the five senses, look at the novelty, or maybe do something different, go on a different walk, select a slightly different object, and then the salience behind it. And then we have to absorb it. We have to give ourselves time to absorb that and to make it that a good experience part of our being. So then when the negative feelings come.
I'm sorry, can you explain again salience, the meaning for the last
brava. I'm thinking about
Good question. I have to be honest, I forgot the meaning of salience. Can somebody look it up in the dictionary and tell us? I forgot the meaning, I have to be honest.
I can go on. Are you doing it, Ro?
I was checking the same actually. What does it mean?
Does it derive from Greek? Aliki?
It doesn't resonate at all.
It sounds like Latino.
So it says that it's the quality of being particularly noticeable or important, prominence.
Mm-hmm.
Aha.
So essentially, we have to give it prominence. It is very easy, for example, when we are having a good experience. Let's take the case of Aliki watching the moon. So she's feeling good about watching the moon. It's just like, wow. Yes, there's everything that's chaotic, and still I can see the beauty of the moon. But at some point, she may think that she may intensify it and all, but if she doesn't give it importance, if she says, it's okay, fine, Next moment, you're back to your life and big deal. What's the big deal in the moon? Then we've lost it. So giving it importance, consciously saying, yes, it's amazing to see this moon. And by the way, Aliki, since you asked the question, how do you bring about that importance or to that experience? How do you see the significance of that experience? That is what we are talking about.
So the interesting for me is that when it's nature oriented, I don't need to bring an external meaning because it's already majestic by its own for me. So like just being able to see an object of the universe like shining upon us and affecting us, for me just by default is like it's a mystical experience. So that's why I like natural phenomena, because I don't need to bring them an extra meaning. They already have quite a lot of meaning for me.
Fantastic. This is exactly, I mean, the quality of being particularly noticeable or important or prominent, right? In your case, you have so much regard or so much natural affinity towards nature. And nature is what we have all around us. So for you, nature is salient. It is already prominent. And especially when we are sitting at home and out there is nature, changes happening naturally, birds, animals, and all that. Just watching the phenomena of nature, in your case, or hopefully in the case of many of us, is salient. It is important. So we don't have to externally or forcefully reinforce it. It's happening naturally. So then when all this happens, it's easy to absorb this experience. Do you see the difference? Remember that that positive experiences can be like Teflon and they don't stick. But when we do it consciously, that is the reason I asked last week, is there any practice you've been doing regularly and now do it more deliberately, more consciously, longer, with more giving it really importance in your life and see the difference. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily do it 2 times, 3 times bigger, but just becoming more aware of it can make all the difference in how it becomes absorbed in our body, in our mind, in our brain. And then as we are going through this experience of absorbing, there's also negative stuff. We cannot avoid it. Let's say I'm watching the moon and I'm feeling good and I'm like thankful to nature and I'm grateful. And there's a thought, uh-oh, but there's this corona thing. I cannot go out and see it every day, which is true. I cannot just go out and walk in the moonlight, or I cannot just go for a long hike without being stopped by somebody today. So we link the positive and the negative and embrace both. We don't run away from the negative. So we focus on the positive. And when the negatives come in, which they invariably will, then we link the two together and then we integrate that. That's what's shown in this figure, where there's a positive, and along with the positive, some negative is coming. Maybe feeling of inadequacy. Maybe, for example, when Jennifer is doing this meditation on abundance, some small voice within her may say, oh, but I don't feel abundant. Jennifer, does that happen to you?
Absolutely. Well, the interesting is, that? Yes, because the other day I felt extremely convinced and sure of myself and positive about some of the actions I wanted to take in terms of the small business I wanted to open and things. And then I got discouraged, and then I lost that wave. I wasn't riding the wave anymore. You know, I completely felt like it was fleeting to me, which is a shame. So if I had stayed and, you know, put more prominence and took more, you know, and in duration, sorry, my son just came in the door. I think if I had embedded that more into that experience of how I was accepting the abundance and maybe my mind would have just caught up and been more deceptive. I don't know. But yesterday I was just discouraged and I was like, threw my hands up in the air. It was very cliche. I was like, oh, forget it. And today I woke up and I started again. I did another round of Roshni said that number day 11 I was on. So I'm like, okay, I'll get back on track. But it's true. I mean, it happens. You sometimes get concerning. I don't know.
This is so good what you're describing, Jennifer. So each one of us goes through this. Each one of us goes through this in our own ways. So our intention is to create that positive experience. I'll give you a simple example. Your intention may be to sit in silence, and here comes your baby. So you integrate the baby, and together with the baby, you can continue to. Or my intention may be to think about, may every being be happy. And then I remember some fight that I had with my friend or with somebody on the street. And I'm like, that's not good. I mean, how can I wish everybody happy when that I start becoming grumpy? So I have to notice that. So as I notice that I'm being grumpy, and then I again continue my practice. And by the way, noticing lack of abundance in your case, Jennifer, may mean like, oh, I'm not good. I'm not smart enough to look at the abundance. No, that creates more negativity. So we have to be very skillful. Today, I'm not feeling abundant. So I'm going to feel that. And then maybe we'll come back. We cannot force ourselves to see the positive. We cannot deny, we cannot repress, we cannot run away from the negative. If your child wants to play with you, you cannot say, it's mindfulness time. I told you it's my mindfulness time, get out of here. That will not help. So you integrate the experience, as Jennifer is already doing, of allowing the child to play with you and yet stay focused. Not easy, but that's what's shown here. So you have that small negative or experience of being distracted, you bring that in, and then you come back to your experience of being connected. Is that clear? And you'll see that in any practice, even in cooking. So I'm cooking with my full attention, and suddenly I'm thinking about the last time I cooked badly, or I'm thinking about, oh, I'm so bored of cooking. I think I should go out in the sun. And suddenly I'm not cooking anymore. So maybe I'll go to the sun and then come back and continue cooking. Or something gets burned when I'm cooking. And I start blaming myself. I'm such a terrible person. I was not mindful. I was not careful. Just, hey, today is a different flavor. Something got a little burned. Let's see how it tastes now. So you bring in the burn, we bring in the negative and the positive, integrate it and continue. Okay, so this is what it is. So the way of strengthening and bringing in and strengthening the positive is called heal yourself, and heal is an acronym here. So heal stands for H is have a positive experience, which we all do in different ways, right? Enrich it. In other words, feel that positive experience with all your senses. And what we discussed before, increase the duration, increase the intensity, absorb it. Give yourself the time to just feel it and let it deepen. And then link the positive and any negative experience together so that we don't run away from the negative. I see Roshni smiling.
Yeah.
Would you like to share something, please?
I definitely would like to share something. So just before we got on the call, and those that know me know that I'm not this great cook, because I always just forget that I'm even cooking something. So I burned, how can I flip my video here? Could you guys see the video?
Yes, yes.
I burned carciofi, which is artichoke. And I used to be getting like really upset with the fact that I burned it. You're seeing me now, right? Sorry, I'm on my phone. And I remember overreacting and being like, oh man, and today for some reason I was like, okay, I burned it. And what I did was I took off the other parts. Now do you see that?
Yes.
What I took, the non-burned part, and I tasted it and I said, wow, when I was growing up, I remember going on a picnic with my family and we would put corn on the cob. And corn on the cob is when you cook it straight in the fire, and makai, right? And so it got burned. And when I ate this, I said, oh, it reminds me so much of the burnt on the corn. And I was like, okay, well, it's okay that it happened. Look, I didn't even think about it actually when it happened. Now that you're saying it, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I linked it to something that was so good and it made the bad so much more easier.
So two things. Thank you for sharing. This is so beautiful. Yeah. Roshni, what Roshni is saying is about the whole heal experience. First, she had a positive experience, whatever she was going through. And she was, feeling it, the cooking and all that. And in the process, the burn thing was a distraction. But at the end, she was able to link the positive and the negative. And linking the so-called positive and the so-called negative, we become whole again. We become integrated again. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I've been living in the place where I think Roshni grew up, Gujarat. And the thing you were describing, Makai, is also what we call it's the season of undio, and I've been missing it. It was February, March, which is where we go. And in urban parts, they cook it in the farms and all kinds of vegetables, including corn. And gosh, I mean, I'm thinking about all those things. I don't even know the names. You may know
the mutia. You take the mutia out.
Yeah, the sweet potatoes, the yams. Yeah, the potatoes, sweet potatoes. Yeah.
Making me hungry.
Yes. So again, even when we think about that, see, here's the beauty of it. Even when we think about ubario, when we think about undio, it gives us that taste in our mouth, makes us hungry. That's the positivity we're talking about. Even when we really relish good experiences, there's that feeling of gratitude. In your case, maybe of being born in a Gujarati community, of cooking with grandpa, grandma. I don't know who else. Did you have it with family when you would go to the and just that gratitude, just that joyfulness is the healing experience, the feeling of the positive experience, watching it, absorbing it, and linking it with reality, linking it with today's reality. So here's what it is. I'm going to the next slide. Can you see the slide? So we have the experience, we enjoy it, and any negativity that's present or any feelings of distraction, any, like if I were to use a Buddhist term, they say wholesome and unwholesome experiences. So I have these wholesome experiences, the experience of abundance, the experience of letting go, and still there's some negativity. Still, for example, nausea is back. So when you're doing the praying the Quran and all that, there's the positive experience, and there may be other distractions. Do you go through that, Nazia? When you're doing your prayers? Sorry?
Yeah. Yes, I was.
Then how do you deal with it? How do you deal with you're feeling positive, you're feeling good, feeling grateful, and then something distracts you? What do you do then?
If I will say that I was thinking when you were giving the lecture, I was thinking about the positivity. What I thought is when I met with my niece, I have a niece, she's 2 years old. When I play with her or when I meet with her, whenever we do with both, I feel very good with her. मुझे सबसे ज़्यादा अच्छा उसके साथ लगता है. मुझे सबसे ज़्यादा जो पॉजिटिविटी मेरे अंदर आती है वो उसी के साथ आती है. एक तो क्या, अगर आपकी नमाज पढ़ ली तो आपने सुकून मिल गया, आपने कुरान पढ़ लिया तो आपको सुकून मिल गया, ठीक है, और थोड़ा सा आप माइंड रिलैक्स हो जाता है. लेकिन जब आप पॉजिटिविटी देखते हैं तो जैसे आपके अंदर नेगेटिविटी भर रही है आसपास के लोगों की वजह से, जब आप उसको साइड पे रखते हैं और जब मैं अपनी नीस के पास जाती हूँ तो मुझे लगता है कि सारी दुनिया की नेगेटिविटी एक तरफ है एंड द पॉजिटिव पॉइंट इज माय ओनली नीस. जब उसके साथ खेलो, उसके साथ टाइम स्पेंड करो तो आप सब कुछ भूल जाते हो और आपको सब कुछ अच्छा लगने लगता है.
Wow, wow. So I'm going to translate that for people who don't understand Urdu or Hindi. So when Nazia does her prayers, she feels good. She feels positive. But then she gets back into day-to-day life. There's all this complaints, there's all this negativity and all. Then she has a niece that she loves, like a 2.5-year-old niece. She just sits with the niece and plays with her. And in the process of just being with her niece, on one side, she can see the negativity she experiences in the world. And on the other side, she can feel the prayer and the positivity she feels in her relationship with her niece. Just being with her niece installs the positivity, strengthens it, and also helps her integrate and allow the positive and the negative to coexist. So this is what we're talking about, installing and strengthening, what we're doing. So here's another example. Let's try it. Notice the experience present in awareness that wherever you're right now, just feel whatever you're feeling right now. So in my case, I'm able to hear the birds. I can see some sunlight. I clearly can feel the spring birds and their music. Does anybody else want to describe what you're feeling or what you're seeing in your current moment? Aliki or Roshni?
Sure. Interestingly enough, we hear the music of Roshni,
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
a few seconds we heard some music, yes.
Here it's like very warm, it's very hot, so it's very interesting to be able to feel the sensations that the heat are bringing and how uncomfortable it might make us feel, or yeah, it's just all sensations are intensified in a hotter environment, so it's very interesting to observe the sensations.
And in this moment, are you feeling gratitude? And if so, can you describe what you're feeling gratitude for?
I'm feeling gratitude for being able to be in a unique place, because we are in a very interesting garden, and to be able to be with interesting people around me and get to immerse in a different culture than mine and share interesting ideas with all of you in a virtual class while we are in the four corners of the world. Practically being alive and being able to experience life.
So did you see what Aliki actually did? And again, this is a very natural process. First, she felt what she, became aware. And because she's earlier described it that she loves being in nature and being in a different world, not her home, but in her new home away from home right now. Yeah. So she was able to experience the novelty, feel the gratitude for the novelty, the warm air, how it's enhancing her senses. So she was enriching that experience, intensifying it, and absorbing it. So this is how, Jennifer, you are on screen now. Do you want to describe what you're going through? We can't hear you because your mic is muted. And I think there's a baby in your neighborhood also, which is great. Tell us a little bit of what you're going through.
I had to shut the door because they're playing a very loud video game, and
that's where the music came from.
Startling. Well, no, that's Roshni's music. Roshni always has a dance party. No, my children are playing a very obnoxious video game, or maybe it's a movie. Now I'm not sure. I'm experiencing a lot of, well, since our home, I have an interesting story right now because I had just moved to this new apartment 2 weeks before the quarantine, 2 weeks before we had known that we'd be going into lockdown. So we made this house a home. We had to, because it was new, but all of a sudden these walls they know us really well now because we never left. So I feel it's very serene. Like, I have a lot of my stuff back in the old house. So I've been living through minimalism, which has made me appreciate just hanging out with my kids as a family, and we have a beautiful view. So I go out a lot and I do the meditations every morning out in our terrace, and I see the whole city and the sea. I shared a picture once. I don't know if Aliki saw it. It's nice. So it helps me connect with nature from far away, because I live in a skyrise, skyrise. I'm from Chicago, so it's as high as we're going to get the 7th floor here, but still. I feel good though. I feel like I have a good balance. What I've created in this new home and what I see outside, and going outside and exploring now. Today was a trip just because it was new. Wow. You have to be a little bit more apprehensive and have the kids, all covered up. But I feel good. It's all good.
Yeah, and in fact, this is what we again saw Jennifer doing. She's taking in the new environment, the novelty of it, feeling it intensely, and also integrating it with any feelings of negativity. Yes, now we have got the coronavirus. Yes, we are seeing the walls more often. Yes, we are now beautifying our environment. So the positive and the negative go hand in hand. We don't run away from the negative saying, I don't want this. And we don't just stick with the positive. We absorb it and intensify it and then embrace it as it is. So Roshni, we are seeing something in your background. Would you describe that?
Yeah, I'm just in the garden in front of the house. So luckily we have this. But can I say something about
Yes, yes.
when when you were saying, oh, and I feel good. And then I was relating it back to your questions about the gratitude that you felt at that moment. And so I had the cold water running. So when you said feel this, funny, the music is not for me. So it was completely in the background for me. It wasn't even something that was my prime. My prime was the cold water on my fingers. And then I remember feeling happy, and I just was feeling gratitude for even having such an ability to feel happy. So I wanted to say to Jen and Jen does this a lot, when you notice you're feeling good, it's like, that's the moment to practice gratitude that you are able to feel this thing. And so just thankful because it's a good feeling. So that gratitude part, I always get it to me because, it's consciously being gratitude, but then when it's to notice when it actually subconsciously becomes a gratitude. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes. In fact, you guys are now speaking the next few slides, which is, yes, there's this feeling of I'm happy and I don't even know why sometimes, or I'm happy and then I'm feeling grateful that I'm happy. So you see, it's a meta emotion.
Can I ask, do we feel happy because we're not thinking about those negative thoughts that pull us down into that spiral of being on the other side? Is it that? Are we distracted from being unhappy? Is that why we're happy?
So Jennifer, you're trying to ask me to become an analyst, and I'm not going to try to analyze your brain. The answer could be any of those things, or it would be something else. But the truth is, the lived experience is important. If we try to analyze it, we could distract ourselves from the lived experience. But we will get to that. We will get to exactly what you're saying in the next few slides. So we have to grow in our key strengths. So here's where the brain comes in. So the brain has three major parts. If you look at it's called the triune model of the brain. Inside, deep inside, is the reptilian part of the brain that is there in all reptiles, snakes, and all the things that we are blaming the virus for. Maybe it came from snake. Yeah, the reptile. The reptile usually thinks mostly in terms of sensations and impulses that come from the sensations. Then there's a bigger part of the brain that comes among all mammals. It's called the limbic. Even the birds have it. Mammals have it even more prominent, the one in yellow. The green part is common to all of us, reptile. And then what is called the limbic part of the brain, that is common to all mammals and even some of the birds and so on. For example, birds taking care of the young ones, or mammals, the way the monkeys groom their babies, and the way humans take care of their children. That is the mammalian brain. Most of the emotions that we experience, the joy we experience, the upset, the anger, all that kind of comes in the mammalian brain. Reptilian brain is about sensations. Mammalian brains is more about feelings and emotions. And then there's the blue part, the one outside, the neo-mammalian, or what's called the cortex and the neocortex. That is most in human beings, most developed. A few animals like dolphins and I think even penguins, elephants also have more than others. But we know for a fact, compared to the mass of our body, our weight, the brain weight is very high. And the big increase, what we see in the forehead, in the front, in the back, the outer covering is called the cortex, or the neo-mammalian brain. So we'll get into each of these things. This is the structure. So we'll look at how it evolved. So the three things meet our three needs. The first one, which is the reptilian brain, keeps us safe and excited. Both safety and excitement comes from the reptilian brain. Then the satisfaction, a connection, that comes from being connected with others. And then there's the neocortex. We'll get into that, which is what Jennifer was talking about. And even, we'll get into that very quickly. So the first thing is safety, right? And that's the reason we have negative emotions. We feel it very quickly. Oh, I don't like the taste of this. Maybe it is toxic. I tried Clorox because somebody said try Clorox, but I don't like the taste. I immediately withdraw. So that is our safety. Grit, protection, relaxation, feeling all right now, peace. So Jennifer mentioned that. Am I happy because I'm not feeling those negative emotions? Maybe. Maybe this is the sympathetic nervous system, the part which basically is looking out for danger or looking out for things to be grumpy about, So if that is relaxed, yes, naturally you're going to feel good. You're feeling at peace, serene. Oh, it's like that response of being serene. Satisfaction, that's the next thing that happens. Then you feel grateful. I'm grateful that I'm feeling serene. I'm grateful that I can feel the joy of touching cold water. As I forget, today I'm missing out. I'm forgetting names. Please remind me your name. The one person who talked about cold water.
Roshni.
Roshni. Yeah, I'll remember it next time. Roshni means light. So I'll remember your name. So Roshni talked about feeling gratitude, even feeling the touch of cold water, right? Or some people feel the, feelings of awe. Aliki described how she feels awe when she's out there in nature and there's the beauty, the warmth and all that. Awe that she's in a new environment, the novelty of it. So that's not only the satisfaction and the gratitude, also the belonging, the connection. And Nazia described that when she's not feeling good about, many things that are happening in the world, being with her little niece, really gives her that friendship, even with a 2-year-old, the love that she feels, the simplicity, the honesty of a 2-year-old playing with a 2-year-old gives her that connection, the belonging, the appreciation. Do you see how these things, it's almost like Maslow's, hierarchy of evolution almost. So feeling safe is the first thing, feeling satisfied, and then feeling the connection. And we can go on, but these are the 3 main things. So here's the baby, even with the pet lizard. Remember we said the lizard actually responds only to impulses? The lizard pretty much has the reptilian brain, but by just giving it a very nice touch, the lizard will feel satisfied. You can have a pet, a snake. I know people who have snakes as pets, but you have to really give it touch. You have to make it feel. Just saying nice things may not help. Saying nice things may help with dogs. You shout at the dog can feel your feelings. So there are various ways at which we can connect. With dogs, with monkeys, we can connect in many more ways because their brain comes closer to our brain. But with the lizard, with the snake, you have to physically give it some kind of touch, maybe the 5 senses need to be triggered. So feeding the mouse. See, just being nice to the mouse, feeding the mouse, and the mouse is happy. And the mouse, have you seen mice feed their own babies? Have you seen a mother mouse taking care of the baby mouse? It's amazing. And just looking at that, we can feel the gratitude, we can feel the connection. Have you seen monkeys? How they take care? Look at the little baby in the middle and how the mother and, the aunties or others are just hugging each other. I know we are told to keep safe distance, but you can still, within your family, you can practice this. Roshni, you were saying something? Okay, so as we get closer and closer to humans, we started off with the lizard, which is mostly the reptilian brain. The mice, now they're mammals, but so they have the limbic brain. With monkeys, we can actually feel almost human feelings. The way they hold each other, they may even take out, they may even do grooming. They may clean up the hair, right? So these are the higher emotions. So we don't need to analyze exactly how it happens, but it is important to know that we start at the base, the taste of the chocolate, the feeling of the cold water, the feeling of the warm air. That's at the skin level, that's at the perception level. Then the gratitude you feel around it, the joy, being thankful, that's where the contentment comes in. And then, oh my God, I'm so grateful. I love these people who made this happen. I'm so in awe. May the people who gave me this space, in my case, I'm in Mexico and somebody's given me this house. I was supposed to be here for 2 weeks and now I've been here for 7 weeks. So there's tremendous feelings of gratitude. I barely know these people. I've only met the lady of the house one time. I've not met the husband. I've not met the children. And I'm living in this house in a place called Cuernavaca, where the weather is spring pretty much from morning till evening. They say it's like this about 10, 11 months in a year. And I'm just feeling, wow. So this feeling of contentment, feeling of peace, and feeling of gratitude, they keep on growing. So here's what it says. This is from the Dhammapada, which is the teachings of the Buddha. And as we said, with the full moon of the Buddha is here, so it's just a coincidence. It wasn't planned. We are the lucky ones to feel it all at the same time. Think not lightly. Who wants to read this? Who wants to read this slide? Roshni, would you read it?
Okay. Think not lightly of good, saying, it will not come to me. Drop by drop is the water pot filled. Likewise, the wise one, gathering it little by little, fills oneself with good. Dhammapada.
Wow, isn't that beautiful? What does it mean to you, Roshni? I saw this fairly recently, this slide.
The water pot filled, likewise the wise one. First thing that comes across is patience. It's being gentle with yourself and patience.
One drop at a time.
And then I'll let someone, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, do you want to say something?
Likewise, the wise one, gathering it little by little, fills oneself with good. It's not to rush things too. Maybe one is really thirsty and just wants to open the faucet, go, as if it's saying it, and just have the water pour out, and fast, instead of waiting patiently for the water to come. Like maybe the water needs to be spread out a little more, and everyone else needs to drink too. Can't be so hasty.
Yeah, don't go and gobble up all the toilet tissues from the
right. Oh yeah.
In fact, I've been studying naturopathy over the last year, and the science of naturopathy is very beautiful. They say even when you drink water, what Jennifer was talking about, I'm very thirsty. I have to be able to digest that water. So I cannot just, guzzle that glass of water down my throat. I have to drink it in sips. Allow my dry throat to feel each sip of water and allow it to absorb it. Then I drink more. Because if I just gobble up, I may drink 2 or 3 glasses of water. Before I know it, my tummy is all bloated up. So my body may not want that much water, or it may not even get absorbed where it needs to get absorbed. So even while eating food, they say, chew with each one of your 32 teeth. So chew food slowly and eat it like little by little. Why? Because we become conscious of the eating process. So just like drinking water has to be done in sips, eating water has to be chewed slowly, maybe 30, if not 30 times, at least 8 or 10 times. It's the same with all experiences. The more we savor them, the more we experience them little by little and let them grow. Even when somebody is falling in love, one possibility, like you're suddenly in love and infatuation, blah, 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 blah. But then it tends to fade away. If we allow it to grow step by step, if we allow a relationship to grow, a friendship to grow, understanding to grow, we're trying to understand a new subject. If we get frustrated that the first time I didn't understand it, then it won't help, because then we'll give up. if we are learning a new, say, bicycling, first few times we're going to fall. We know that we're going to fall. So if we slowly learn to balance ourselves in bicycling, we become better. For 30 years, I tried to cook and I was not successful because my wife was much better than me. And I would keep comparing, saying, oh, I'm giving up because I'm going to mess it up. Seema, you do it. Now I'm alone and there's no choice. So little by little, I started cooking. The first day, I just warmed up hot water. I started drinking warm water. The next day, I started putting herbs in the water. The third day, I brought some fruits and started making juicing and things like that. And by the fourth day, I was opening up and putting some spices. I found that there were Italian and Indian spices. And now it's been about 4 weeks. I'm a pretty good cook. In fact, I'm such a good cook. I like my cooking so much. I've been putting on weight. So I have to become conscious again, not to just eat up everything I cook.
Good for you.
Yeah, but the challenge is we can lose our balance, as you're saying, Roshni, earlier. The excitement of, oh my God, I love my own food. I could gobble up more than my body needs. That's where taking it little by little is helpful. And you described that really well, how there are certain experiences that, we overreact or we become, too engrossed in it, and then we lose our sense of balance. And how you were able to balance Vipassana with mindful breathing, right? Could you explain that again? This is so contextual here.
I'm sorry, explain what? About Vipassana and how?
How by doing rhythmic breathing or doing this deep breathing, you're able to become more conscious, becoming more equanimous, more mindful, and have that sense of balance. That's what I think you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, it's the point of, it's the actual experience of feeling like you're going to be out of breath, which you're not. You can go that much further. So it's that feeling you get of, what is it, adrenaline, fight or flight, and you want to just react right away and take it. So it's that moment there to be acting consciously, making an action versus having to automatically make it as
Wow, great. This segues us into the next few slides. This is so perfect. This is so perfect. Oh, I think we're out of slides, but I'll actually get into that, what you described without the slides. Remember we talked a little earlier about the reptilian brain? Let's go into that. So the green side here, the reptilian brain, is the one that is primarily with fight, flight, or freeze, which is the instinctive reactions we have to what's happening. The need for safety. I'm out of breath. Oh my God, I'm hyperventilating. I'm out of breath. So then it can go into a vicious negative cycle. So it's important to calm that down. So any practice that can calm that down will help you bring ease, will slow down that adrenaline rush. And then it'll bring us to the calmness that can connect us with things around us. That's the limbic brain, the connection with the environment. And then we think about it consciously, which is where we come into the mammalian brain and make a practice out of it. So in the case of Roshni, she realized that there are times when she is overreacting. So that awareness, oh, looks like I'm in the fight, flight, or freeze mode. Then she watches consciously her breathing and slows down her breath. And then she gets connected and aware of her breath. And when she's conscious, her mind stills. And then slowly, then she can reconnect with things that are happening in her neighborhood. And because she knows this is working for her, she makes it a habit, a daily or a regular habit, whenever she is losing, consciousness. And that becomes a rational decision, a way of life or a strategy. That's the good thing about being human. The neo-mammalian brain is able to forecast, plan, and act. Unfortunately, many times we forecast the worst possible situation, and then we are back again in the fight, flight, or freeze. Do you see how it is? That is called that goes deeper into neuroscience. That's called in neuroscientifically, it's called the amygdala hijacking. We can hijack ourselves and get all
Amygdala.
outbursts. Amygdala hijacking. So we have to be careful when we start planning, when we start thinking, to slow down, calm down. Otherwise, we can say, oh, what if I don't get the vaccine? And then what will happen? The world will come to an end. Or maybe everybody will die and there'll be war. You see, if you just watch social media today, if you go and read messages on social media, for every good message, there are about 10 hidden negative. And that's because people are very, very concerned. But their concern is going to the fight, flight, or freeze. And what is actually getting reinforced is the negativity. That's why we have to deliberately remind ourselves, no matter what happens outside, I'll still watch my breath. I'll still calm down. I'll still be with my baby right now. And I'll be there for my family or with my friends. Or if I'm alone, like in Aliki's case, okay, I'm feeling the warmth of the air. I'm grateful for the beauty of nature. So it's a deliberate practice. It's easy to go into the negative. It takes practice to stay into the what is called the wholesome or pro-social emotions. So we are pretty much done with the slides, but this is a great time to discuss and understand. And there are lots and lots of, this is just, as I said, this is just the beginning of the neuroscience of happiness. These courses go on for 8 weeks, or in fact, like half a semester length course. And if you have any questions, I can definitely answer some of them and refer you to the right material, the videos, dozens of videos, hundreds of videos on these topics. Did you have any question, Jennifer? Maybe I'm going to stop sharing the slides since we are done.
If you could, I do have a question. Sorry, yeah. Could you spell amygdala hijacking?
Sure. I'm going to put it in our chat so you can even read it. Amygdala. Oh, I missed the A.
I almost had it, except for I put DELA.
Okay, so amygdala is that part. It's actually a part of the limbic brain. Okay, where it's like the hypothalamus, the thalamus. It's one of the seats of emotions. So here's the interesting thing. Remember, we talked about the structure of the brain and how it evolved over time. The reptilian brain is there in all living beings. When I mean, like the basic desire to survive. Even bacteria, even viruses know how to survive. There's the instinct to survive. Trees have very well developed, systems by which they survive. Trees communicate with each other through the root system, and they can actually talk to each other. If you're interested, there's a whole book called The Secret Life of Plants. I know I'm digressing from animal brains, but anytime you have life, including plant life, including microbial life, there is that basic survival instinct, right? In fact, they say that it's there at the cellular level. If I can give an example of how it works at the cellular level and how we can bring it into practice, those people here who are fasting nowadays, especially those who are doing Roja during Ramadan, what happens is that when we are hungry and calm at the same time, it is important to be calm and hungry. If you're desperate and rushing towards the refrigerator, that is not helpful. So having any kind of trust or faith in the process, whether it is to a higher soul, such as Allah, or it is to the doctor or the therapist who is telling you to do intermittent fasting, just having that trust is good for me, helps to calm down the reptilian brain. Now what happens is when the reptilian brain is calm, when we're able to stay there, then there's still hunger, right? Hunger cannot go away. In Roshni's case, you're not eating for 16 hours, you said, right? From 8 p.m. till next day noon. So in the case of Muslims right now, daytime is more than 14 hours. So no food for 14 hours. Some people won't even drink water. And what's happening in the body? The body is feeling starved. The body is feeling starved. So some people in the old days, they should say, oh, that's bad for your body. No, it's not bad if you're able to take it. It is not forced. Ramadan doesn't mean you're forced to not eat. It is done voluntarily. Everybody takes it as a practice. Intermittent fasting doesn't mean you're forced not to eat. You slowly increase your stamina. Now what happens is there are starved cells in our body, and there's a phenomenon for which a Nobel Prize was given 2 years ago in medicine called autophagy. Certain cells in the body, they say, I think my time is over, so they die. And other cells eat up the good stuff from those cells, and the bad stuff gets excreted out. So there's a cleansing that happens in the body. There's a cleansing that happens in the body, which is so beautiful. So undigested food, for example, the sugar supply will get used up. And then the ketones, the proteins and the fats and all start breaking up. And they start getting absorbed. But what's interesting is they say even cancerous cells start to die. And things that are
People
not
know.
good for, sorry?
That's very sorry. That is so amazing to hear that you can fast and that could naturally help someone who has cancer.
Yeah, but well, this is not a cure for cancer, but cancerous cells happen all the time. We get deformed cells, we get bad DNA or whatever all the time. Mutation is natural. But when we are able to do things like intermittent fasting, and I would highly recommend reading more about it, the science. One particular term that I mentioned is autophaging, AUTOPHAGING. I think phaging means kind of like eating yourself, eating a part of your own body. So certain cells will go and eat up other cells. And it's interesting because it essentially is a cleansing physically. Emotionally, if I may say so, you see what we were talking about earlier? First, you focus on what's good. First, you focus on a practice that helps you calm down, or on a practice that gets you excited in a positive way. And then along with that, there's that nagging thing. In Jennifer's case, Jennifer talked about the fact that she couldn't feel abundance. So yeah, today I'm not feeling abundant. Or if Roshni is practicing that longer breath, sometimes it may not be 10, 15 seconds of deep breath. At that time, we cannot punish ourselves. If we punish ourselves, then we are back in the fight, flight, or freeze, or the amygdala hijacking. Oh, I'm no good. This is useless. The next day, you will not practice. At that time, you have to be forgiving and say, okay, so today, Roshni was not able to do it. Today, Shankar is not able to appreciate. Today, Aliki is feeling hot and sweaty and is not feeling good about the environment. It's okay. So forgiving oneself, being compassionate with oneself is important. So Nazia, you've been doing Roja probably every day, right? It's been almost for 12, 15 days. Can you describe your experience? It's not always perfect, right? It's not always you're happy not to eat. How do you deal with that? आप हिंदी में भी उर्दू में भी बोल सकते हो. So when you're feeling uncomfortable, what do you do?
Whenever, sorry, I'm totally lost right now. Mostly it happens, for example, if we are not taking food or not drinking water for the whole of the day, but for first sight, we think that for whole of the year, we have all of the months we are eating, we are taking food, we have a good sleep, but for just for one this month, in a 12 months, this month we don't eat or we don't drink for few hours, not for whole day or for few hours, we don't take food. So it feels like to whom we can say that वो poor लोग जो जिनको नहीं मिलता खाने को, हम उनके बारे में सोचते हैं कि हाँ भी उनको नहीं मिला, तो हमें ये चीज एहसास में होती है कि हाँ अगर किसी को पानी पीने को नहीं मिल रहा तो वो क्या फील कर रहा है, और अगर किसी को खाने को नहीं मिल रहा तो वो क्या फील कर रहा है. तो हमें वो एहसास हमारे अंदर पैदा होता है, हमें कदर होती है पानी की, खाने की, कि हाँ भाई ये हमारे लिए कितनी कीमती चीज है, प्रीशियस है हमारे लिए. सेकेंडली हमारी, अगर हम पूरे साल खा रहे हैं तो हमारी बॉडी में ऑब्वियसली फैट्स आते हैं, और कुछ ऑब्वियसली हम कह सकते हैं कि बुरी बुरी चीज़ें हमारे अंदर आ रही हैं, बट ये कि जब हम 1 महीना जो है ये रोकते हैं अपने आप को इस चीज़ से कुछ घंटों के लिए, तो वाकई हमारी बॉडी पर बहुत कंट्रोल फील होता है, चाहे वो पानी से हो चाहे खाने से.
Okay, so Nadia said something very beautiful, and I'm going to translate it for those who don't understand Hindi or Urdu. So what she says is only 1 month in a year they do this fasting during the month of Ramadan, what they call Roja and all that. So of course the body is not used to it and the mind is not used to it. So there are times when you're doing this few hours of not eating or drinking that there'll be discomfort. So the practice is to take that discomfort and focus on those people around us who don't even get the basic food, who don't get clean water, and feel gratitude, feel their pain, feel their misery. So now this is the practice of compassion, feeling the pain of the other, feeling the misery of the other. Those who don't have a home, we have food, we have water, and we are voluntarily not eating. Imagine those people who don't have food, who don't have water, who don't have a warm house or a safe house. We feel gratitude that I'm getting my needs met. And we start seeing their pain. We start experiencing, we at least get a visceral feeling in our body, in our mind, of the misery of the other. And guess what happens? The next thing that will happen is you will naturally go out and start sharing. That's the next step in compassion. First feeling, that's the empathy, and then the action, compassion in action. And that's what is encouraged in the month of Ramadan. And that's just true about all religious practices. Every single wisdom tradition essentially has the same ideas. We call it dana in the Buddhist or the Hindu tradition. We first, dana means sharing or, sorry?
D-A-N-A. Sorry, can you spell it?
Yes, D as in David, D-A-N-A. And again, it starts with feeling anapana, my in-breath, my out-breath. And then we start feeling our discomfort. We start feeling our cravings and aversions. Cravings in Buddhist terminology is called tanha, T-A-N-H-A. Also there in Urdu and Hindi and Sanskrit. Tanha, the thirst, desperate. Tahan, Marathi mein, tanha, like the desperation, right? So we feel our cravings and then we start relaxing into it. That's when we bring in what's called equanimity or upeksha. That's a Sanskrit word. Upekha in Pali. And we bring in that neutrality. Yes, I'm thirsty and it's okay. I can stay with that feeling of thirst. I can stay with that feeling of discomfort. I can relax into my discomfort. What happens then is the discomfort gets stronger even, right? But so this is what's happening in the body and the mind. The body is thirsting for food, for water, or for food, or in many cases right now, we are all in quarantine or we are at home. We are thirsting to meet our friends. It is not just about physical. Oh, I'm missing my friends. In my case, I'm missing my wife and my children, right? Okay, Zoom call. Zoom is not working. Sometimes Zoom freezes. So it helps us to delay our gratification. So the mind as well as the body are getting trained. So many of these religious practices, including the practice of the fasting during Ramadan, the practices of Buddhist Anapana, Vipassana, where you spend hours and hours in silence. In Christian monasteries, they again have this periods of silence. Catholics have this practice of Lent, where they voluntarily say for the next 40 days, I'm not going to eat certain things. Jennifer, you're nodding. Are you by any chance a practicing Catholic? Your mic is on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I moved to... I would love to explain. I'm a practicing Catholic, but this time around, Lent happened during quarantine, so we were already limited to a lot. So I didn't. I thought that was enough. Quarantine means 40 days anyway, so I treated it right.
Yes, yes.
All good. 40 days.
Isn't it interesting? I mean, talking about religion and science and how things are coinciding with the coronavirus. The coronavirus came into all our lives around before we got into spring. before Good Friday, before
Yes.
Yugadi, before what's called even for the Gujaratis, this is the Garba time, Navaratri of the winter. From the winter, we are going into Vasant Ritu, and before Ramadan. So all these festivals are like the end of one season and going into the other season. Winter is ending. We're slowly going into spring. And during that time, when we deliberately cultivate those practices, such as Lent, in Lent, you give up something you like. Is that correct? What is the practice of Lent?
It is. It's because of Moses when he had crossed through the desert. So he had 40 days. He was deprived. And so people give up something that they're pretty attached to. I remember years ago, my sister gave up Facebook. I thought that was hilarious. And she did it for 40 days.
Of Facebook Lent.
Yeah, it was, she was, on social doing, but it wasn't so much now as an important, it was more for fun for her back then, but she did, that was one of her.
Great. So each one of us in our own ways, whether it's the people who are practicing Islam, for the whole day, they will try not to eat food or drink water. So it builds tolerance, it builds compassion, it builds patience too. It also tests our resilience. This is not none of these are forced practices. Lent is done voluntarily. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sidra has joined us. So hi, Sidra. Would you like to share anything on this ongoing discussion? You joined us after your other class, I guess. You're on mute. Yeah, please go ahead.
I love to listen you both. I love to listen you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So Aliki, would you like to share any of the things that you do and how it relates to building this tolerance, building this resilience?
Resilience is always an interesting subject, right? Because it's very easily lost in conditions like the one we are living right now. So I guess very constant, so you don't have to go and think about it. And sometimes our brain is playing tricks to us in difficult situations, can help a lot. Like just even if everything is telling you that it's too stressful right now to meditate, for example, doesn't matter. Just we can put in our brain in the autopilot and knowing that it will help in the long term. So this is something that really helps actually. And second, realize that, what is more important from us being well, what is the priority? Which other is the priority? As a friend is saying, like, where are we rushing to? Are we rushing to our grave or where are we rushing to? So I remember this phrase like every time that I don't have time to take care of myself,
In fact, there's a saying in business circles in America, people are too busy to make money. Or in happiness circles, we are so busy that we don't have time to feel the joy of being alive. In French, there's a phrase called joie de vivre. I may not be pronouncing it correctly. Anybody knows French? How do you say it? Joie de vivre? Like the joy of being alive. How do you say it, Aliki?
Similar. I don't have the best pronunciation in French neither, but joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre. So the point is that being grateful for the small things in our life, even during the most adverse situations, we can see and appreciate some good things in our life. I remember there was a person on death row. He had murdered many women for some reason. And then when he was asked to say his last wish, Dale Carnegie quotes this in his book on, I think, how to win friends and influence people. It's a very famous example. On death row, this man says, people think I'm a very bad person. I'm a horrible person. And I went and killed so many women. But inside me, there's this person who is really a kind person, who is misunderstood. People have misunderstood that person. And that person is, that little kid, that little child is so angry, is going and killing because he doesn't know how to feel love for women. So, again, this is based on a real story. But we see this misogyny coming out of negative feelings because something in us, some good little child in us that's not feeling nourished. So to a large extent, A lot of what we're doing, the practices that we are talking about, is to feel that inner child, to feel that little reptile within us that needs that nurturing. Some of us need food, but we think we need a lot of food. So when we're practicing fasting, we realize that maybe I don't need that much food. Maybe I will be contented with less. That less is more. When Jennifer's sister said she's going to give up Facebook, yes, we all need the likes, right? Like has become an endorphin rush. People are getting all excited. Oh, did you know I got 1,000 likes for my post? And all I did was laughing. Ha ha ha. Well, it creates this joy, exhilaration almost. But it's a dopamine or endorphin rush. And when we don't get that, we are upset. Then we feel the low. So there's that roller coaster now. And it's very well known. If you're interested in understanding the role of social media, just check on endorphin rushes and Facebook or social media. You'll find all kinds of references, how it is creating cravings and aversions. A lot of people are craving for attention. FOMO is a very new term, but it's becoming entrenched. The fear of missing out, right? Everybody puts their best pictures, the best smile. Oh, I'm in Cuernavaca, I'm doing this, and somebody else is doing that. And everybody says, oh shit, Shankar is having all the fun. But not knowing that I'm not putting all my negative things. I'm just throwing away all my negative things. I don't share them on Facebook. I'm only sharing excitement. So that creates that fake or incorrect or incomplete picture of what's going on. So again, social media has become a drug of choice for many people now. And all addictions, all cravings come out of this feelings of inadequacy, which almost go deep into our brain, and they become a repetitive pattern. So now, what do we do? The practices we talked about just give you an idea of where we start. If you want to understand it better, then how people go into this anger or do all these negative things. Amygdala hijacking describes that. There's a pathway that goes to the lower parts of the brain to instantly react. You know, when you're driving and a truck comes in front of you, you'll swerve, you'll take your car out of the way without even thinking. When an animal is coming at you, you will jump, do whatever without even conscious thinking. That is the purpose. That's what keeps us sane. That's what saves our life. That is the amygdala takes over, the lower parts of the brain take over. So there's a faster pathway to the lower parts of the brain for survival. And then there's the other part, which is the conscious thought through process. But you cannot be thinking through when you have a truck coming at you. You cannot be thinking through when you find your child is touching fire. You have to snag that child. So that impulse instinct has its role. We cannot say we are going to ignore all our impulses. That would be dangerous. But when things are fine, when things are in control, that's when we practice deeper breathing. That's when we practice abundance. That's when we do the practices like namaz. That's when we do practices like roja or fasting or retreats, so that we can develop these inner qualities, these inner strengths to be able to deal with difficulties, to be able to deal with excess, to bring back, to bring balance back in our life. So anyway, any questions, comments? We've done well on time. I'm surprised. We have another 20 minutes if you want any questions. Aliki, was that in line with what we had said? And by the way, this was just an introduction, but this is a very practical introduction. I'm really grateful to Dr. Rick Hansen, who created these slides, and they have these long courses. Asidra, any questions?
Please.
Okay. I just heard about the hypnotism. Someone is just trying to hypnotize anyone, and it's going to be the planning to the blasting. It's a planning to kill anybody. So is this existing if someone is hypnotizing to other one for hurting someone? Because when we both start sitting together and I'm hypnotizing to you, you were a very good one, and you need to be hurt that person because it's a very bad guy, and that type of things. And my hypnotism is effect on your mind, and you just act like what you are just act like this. So is it effect on the mind, and is it a chemical reactions, or you can say that our mind is a very small thing, and our mind is a very and very immature?
So you've asked many questions there, Sidra, and I don't think I have the time or the expertise to answer all of them. What I can tell you, what you're talking about is casting spell, thinking bad of others, or scaring them, or making them go in the wrong direction. There is this whole occult, or this whole casting spells and all. I have to say, I've not studied it much. I've heard about it anecdotally. It's often talked about in Asia, in every culture. I don't know a whole lot about it. What I do know is that if you talk from a neuroscientific perspective, which you missed the first hour today. What really happens is that our brain, which is supposed to be calm, easily gets attracted towards negative impulses. It's called automatic negative thoughts. Anything that is not safe, anything that threatens us, anything that scares us, our attention goes. Like, for example, our instant, we will be like, there'll be that, what is it called? Shock, right? If I did it in front of your eyes, or if I do something like this, it's almost impossible to keep our eyes open. If somebody, puts the fingers close to your eyes, even if I do this, okay, you might suddenly jerk behind. So these are instincts or impulses. Why do they happen? Self-preservation, to protect ourselves. Where do they come from? That comes from the lower levels, or the original part of the brain, the reptilian part of the brain, to save us. So there are people who use these occult practices or crazy practices that kind of jerk people out of their normal, stable environment and bring some amount of fear or anxiety or strong emotions that will then put them in a different vicious feedback cycle. I haven't studied it as a science and I don't know the details. Does it happen? I've seen it happen. I've observed people who have gone through it for years. Essentially, what's happening in their case is this phenomenon called amygdala hijacking. But again, since I haven't studied it much more, I would stop at that. Please read up on amygdala hijacking. It's in our chat if you joined us early enough. Otherwise, I think probably one of us will share it in the group. Okay, so again, these are things that are still being learned and understood. And so it's work in progress, at least for me. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Just saying that I really enjoyed today. It was fantastic to put a lot of personal examples inside so we can really experience and learn what it is that you were wanting to share today. So it was really good.
Well, I'm glad, Roshni. Thank you for acknowledging that. There are lots of courses on happiness, and they're all good. You can learn much more about the theory. But I find that in any such session, the sharing is very useful, even for me. As I said one of the times earlier, our nature is to nurture. Whether it's a baby, the mother or a father taking care of the baby, or a pet, or in Nazia's case, being with her niece, or even being in nature in Aliki's case. Our nature is to be with life, to be nurturing to life. That's why we often gravitate towards not only plants and animals, we even gravitate towards mountains, streams of water, because we know that they nurture life. Anything that nurtures and brings about positive feelings. If you see a waterfall, if you see even a forest, even a fire, we know that, for example, fire will remind us of cooking, and the waterfall will remind us of fresh water, the rains, the peacocks, they go out and start dancing in the rain. So it's instinctive. So what we do in a group like this is by sharing our experiences, sharing our experiences of what nurtures us, that we strengthens our practice. Remember we talked earlier that negative emotions stick like Velcro, where positive emotions take time. They're more like Teflon. What we're doing is we're deliberately bringing in practices that help us to deepen our practice of becoming more wholesome. Whether it's the practice of doing namaz, or practicing roja, or it's the practice of Lent, or it's the practice of mindful breathing, or it's the practice of being in nature, or just being aware. Any of these practices has therapeutic value. So, each one of them may not have been studied. Yeah, Aliki?
Shankar, what do you feel that would be important for the girls to be practicing this week as an assignment for the next week? So what do you feel that would be important to take out from this class, or maybe which part of the theory can be implemented and how?
My recommendation is to do some self-reflection and think about all the practices that you've done before or have heard of, and pick one or two and do it more. Because remember we said it's easy to start a new practice, but it's harder to keep it steady. So any practices that you have liked, so for Aliki, that may be going to nature, is that right? Or do you do any other practices, Aliki? So kind of make a list of the practices. Okay. So after you make the list of practices, in your mind, you can prioritize it and take one or two, or as many as you can, but start with at least one primary practice that you do deliberately. Now, why do it deliberately? Because remember, there's an earlier principle we talked about, neurons that fire together, they wire together. So it is necessary to make it a habit. In Sanskrit, the word is sanskar, or like a way of living life. It's like brushing our teeth. You know, you tell a child to brush her teeth, and she goes, "Mom, I brushed my teeth yesterday." Yeah, but you just ate food. You need to brush your teeth. But I brushed it after breakfast. Why should I brush every time? Now, what would you tell Jennifer? You're a mother. What do you tell your baby when she refuses to? I'm sure it happens, right?
No, I bribe them. Brush your teeth, and we can pick out your favorite book before we, that always works.
Bribe them positively.
Brushing their teeth.
Something that is nurturing.
So you're linking positivity to something they look negative. Yeah, you're linking it for them.
Yes, you're tagging something positive with the feelings of negativity around brushing. And then over time, the child brushes and they don't need to be told even. So you're using the sticks and carrot strategy, you're using carrots, right? But this is how we have to do it with ourselves too.
Is that what you, sorry, Shankar, can I ask, is that what you meant then when our ancestors evolved, avoid sticks? But I think I wrote this incorrectly, was more important than getting carrots.
Yes, survival is the first thing. If you don't survive, there's a saying, people have been arguing, oh, I think we should go out and let herd immunity take over for coronavirus. And many people have said, no, if we are not dead, if we are not alive, then everything won't help. In India, the Prime Minister came up with a phrase, Jaan hai to jahan hai. Jaan is, if there's life, then there is heaven. But if I'm not alive, what's the point? So survival is the first instinct.
Yeah.
Stay at home, stay safe, save yourself first, and then save others, right? That's what we are saying in the West. So the first instinct is to take care of ourselves. So that's where the sticks come in. Don't do things that'll hurt you. So stay away from dangerous things, for example. But we can get obsessed with that. We can get obsessed to the time we get totally paralyzed. We're sitting at home every day. I was doing that for a few days, checking every hour what the numbers. Oh my God, 10,000. Oh, my God, 12,000. And 20,000 in New York City, 70,000 in America. We can drive ourselves crazy. Yeah. That's amygdala hijacking, where I'm losing all focus and I've just bloated up my fear.
Yeah.
So the sticks are helpful, but don't use the sticks to the point where we get traumatized. Then we go to the carrots. A mindful practice, maybe a little bit of chocolate, maybe singing a song, maybe sharing maybe sharing, as Nazia was saying, I'm feeling hungry, I'm feeling miserable that I haven't eaten, and I feel like breaking the fast. But I see somebody outside who is hungrier than me, then I take some food and give it to that, or see a dog. I've been looking at dogs and cats outside. They're feeling so miserable because people are not interacting with them. We are not even going out. So just being there for the cat, as soon as I say, hi, kitty, the cat starts rolling in the ground happily. This is how we connect. This is how we give carrots to each other, support each other, create community. So, yes, so what will work in each circumstance is up to us to find out. There's no magic, there's no tricks. We have to discover, becoming more and more aware what works for me. So, Aliki, each one of us, if we summarize the things that have worked for us, and then pick one or two or three things, that will be helpful. Not only now, but even in future. Because it's easy to take top 10 practices and not do anything. So in the case of, for example, those practicing Ramadan, if they practice it very consciously, if they become acutely aware of when they're hungry, when they're thirsty, and then they start becoming generous, then they start feeling gratitude. That'll help them tremendously. It's very therapeutic. In your case, the practice of being in nature, just soaking yourself in nature in itself is very therapeutic. So in Roshni's case, she described her practices of mindful breathing and rhythmic breathing and making it longer without beating yourself up. That is important also. Because, oh, damn, I missed it today. Why is it that my stamina has gone down? It is what it is. Today, I'm not able to keep the breath. Does that happen to you, Roshni? You're on mute. Your microphone.
Yeah, okay. Actually, the second or third day, it happened where everybody else was advancing, and then I got to a point where I wasn't able to do what I was able to do before, and I didn't understand. And then we talked about it to the instructor after. It's like, okay, the learning lesson I had there was be gentle with myself. Know that it has ups and downs. Don't get upset with myself about it. So it absolutely happened, and the awareness happened that I was doing that.
So Jennifer, to answer your question, yes, you use the stick to remind yourself, but you don't use the stick so much that you'll stop the practice or get, oh, I'm a failure, I can't do this. If your sister, for first 10 days, she's not using Facebook, but 30 more days to go, oh, damn it. You know, in the middle of the night, sometimes I open Facebook without even knowing it.
It's chronic.
It's chronic. It's chronic. So anything that has gone out of control, slowly, gently, you bring it back. With children, you cannot beat them into submission. That doesn't help. You have to gently bring them back the way you've been doing it. The baby comes and wants to play with you. Okay, baby, a little later, I'll give you chocolate, whatever. So sometimes you use the stick, sometimes you use the carrot, sometimes you use delayed gratification, whatever works. So Nazia, let's hear from Nazia. When you do the practices, and are there times when you have this intense craving, khana khane ka man karta hai? And how do you deal with that during the day?
I'm mostly not hungry for food, but I mostly feel crazy for thirst for water. I mean, पानी की प्यास बहुत ज़्यादा लगती है, उसके लिए होता है कि बस पी लें पानी, but खाने का इतना नहीं होता, क्योंकि आप काम में बिजी हो, जॉब में बिजी हो, घर में आके बिजी हो, कभी कभी ऐसा होता है आप स्किप कर देते हो अपना फूड, और कभी कभी तो ऐसा होता है कि पूरा दिन कुछ नहीं खाया, रात में आप खाने बैठ रहे होते हो, तो फूड का इतना नहीं होता, बट ये कि मोस्टली जो होता है प्यास का होता है कि आपको कुछ पीने को मिल जाए, वरना आपकी एनर्जी जो है वापस नहीं आ रही होती है.
Yeah, so what Nazia is saying, right now it's peak summer in Pakistan or most of South Asia. So she's not craving for food, but she's craving for water because it's thirst. 14 hours of heat, and especially the sunshine is like intense. I've heard temperatures as high as 40 and 45 degrees Celsius, which would be like well over 100 degrees in Fahrenheit. And to be able to withstand not drinking water is an exercise in patience. So to be able to gently, take care of that is the biggest challenge. So Nazia, तो आपको जब बहुत प्यास लगती है तो आप क्या करते हो? आप खुद को कैसे संभाल लेते हो?
Patience.
Patience.
Which is the most important thing. Yeah. सब्र करते हैं. Most important जो हम learn करते हैं जब ये रमजान में, वो यही चीज होती है कि आपने सब्र करना है. इवन के पानी आपके सामने भी होता है, फिर भी आपने सब्र करना होता है कि आपने वक्त पर ही पीना है. ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट होता है हमारे लिए.
Wow. So what Nazia said is that when there's intense desire for water, because it's hot and it's thirsty and your stamina is going down, the most important thing people learn is patience. You see water right in front of patience.
Oh.
You can actually see water in front of you. And you say, and I can wait.
And can I add, I think she was also saying that what goes through her head is, okay, here, this is what Ramadan is. This is what it's about. She's already got in her mindset, like, this is going to happen. So she knows and is preparing herself for those times where she feels that. And that mental preparation beforehand makes her able to deal with it easier.
Yeah, right. and what Roshni described, or what Nazia said in Urdu, this trust in the process is necessary. So any meditation practice you take, any practice, whether it's cooking or cleaning or parenting, mindful parenting, you have to trust that process is going to help you to grow. If you don't trust Allah, if you don't trust the Quran, then this practice will not work for you. So it is faith, trust is necessary. If you don't trust your medical doctor, and if that doctor is given intermittent fasting, it's not going to work. If Roshni doesn't trust the person who taught her the practice of rhythmic breathing, it won't help. At some point, they have to experiment and create faith and trust. Now, I know some people who are agnostic or atheistic say, I don't trust in God. No, you don't have to trust in God. You have to at least trust in your own nature. I'm breathing. I feel the need for breath. There are times when I hyperventilate. Breathing goes out of order. There are times when I get upset. There are times when I get angry. There are times when I'm joyful. What do I want to be? Do I want to be upset all the time? Do I want to be hyperventilating all the time? Or do I want to slowly cultivate practices that will help me calm down? My mentor is an atheist. He's a top neuroscientist. And he says he learned compassion just by watching his own negative emotions of people around him and positive emotions and knowing the discernment. And now he's become a really good friend of the Dalai Lama as well as Sadhguru and Desmond Tutu. So he goes around the world, a person who says, I'm not totally into these religious practices. He goes around meeting every year and he hosts them at Stanford, he hosts them and he goes literally to India and to Africa to meet these people. Why? Because he's trusting that some of these practices are very helpful. As a neuroscientist, as a neurosurgeon, he has gone to the point of saying that many of these techniques are so powerful. They can calm your mind, they can calm your brain, they can change the wiring in your brain. You will not get many of the mental illnesses or the brain diseases. You won't need neurosurgery. If you can find yourself coming down within any practice. So yes, any practice that we do, we have to do at least trusting that will work at least for a limited period of time. If it doesn't work, fine. You can go to another one. But having that patience is necessary. It's a precondition that you can feel joy in that practice. Otherwise, there are many people, including me, I used to hop from one practice to another. You know, it's called spiritual materialism or experimenting with too many techniques, not helpful in the long run. Any one practice that goes deeper, it's like digging well. You are very thirsty, like say Nadia is thirsty. So you start digging a well. But पानी नहीं आ रहा है. तो क्या करें? Go to another well. नहीं आ रहा है. Another well. नहीं आ रहा है. It is not helpful. You will not get water. Dig deep enough. Consult the right people maybe. Understand the characteristics of the soil and the rocks and find water. So once you have the taste of the water, you're more likely to go dig deeper into any practice, whether it's meditation, relaxation, feeling joy, whatever. It's harder for me or anyone to suggest to others what they should do. Becoming more and more aware and realizing our tendencies. If I'm the kind who likes to jump from one topic to another, I had to slow down and then select that one thing that works for me better and cultivate that at least for, say, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, slowly, one drop at a time. Keep on building that reservoir one drop at a time. Does that make sense? Yeah, Jennifer, please go ahead.
To unmute, sorry. One quick question. The Sanskrit word that pertained to when you were describing neurons that fire together, wire together. You want to say in Sanskrit there's a term or a word for it?
Yeah. Creating such habits is called sanskar. I'm going to type that in.
Sanskar, that's it. I had just written the S. Sanskar with an A, S-A-N-S-K.
S-K-A-R. In Pali, the language that Buddha taught, it's called sankhara. Now, sankhara, again, sanskar, many of them we inherit. How do we inherit? From the neighborhood where we live, from the parents, from the friends.
And repetition too, the practice of.
Yes, and the joy and the excitement. It's an infectious thing. We infect each other with certain habits. A simple example, if you have a teenager around, PUBG, it requires no reinforcement. Everybody is a PUBG addict, right? Or Facebook or any social medium. WhatsApp is the most popular, I think, in India.
And in Europe.
And then people start believing everything read on WhatsApp too. So they said, what's wrong in getting different opinions? It's like, what's wrong in eating garbage? What is wrong in eating garbage? What's wrong in eating all the time? Well, you try it and then you will see it. So likewise, that's why there's a need for disciplining ourselves. So sankharas or sanskar are habits that are so deeply ingrained that it wires the brain in a certain way. This is what called, this is a known phenomenon in psychology as long as even 1950s and 60s. There's an author by the name of Edward de Bono, probably, I don't know, you're Italian? Or,
sounds like an Italian last
name. Edward, I think this is the spelling, Edward de Bono. And he wrote a thing called lateral thinking, long time ago.
What kind of thinking? Are you typing?
Lateral thinking, I put it in the chat group. So this is about, we get so ingrained in our way of thinking, these habit patterns. Sankharas are habit patterns, sanskar, that we're not able to change. An example will be...
Shankar, I would like us to be a little bit mindful about the time today. I wouldn't like to pass it on. If there are personal questions, we can keep them separately. You all have Shankar's number. And just a small reminder of the assignment of next week to actually what you're talking about, to go and rewire our brains, because putting small habits would actually help us rewire the habits we don't like. So we just replace the habits that are not necessary to be there. And I would like as girl to give a very big thank you to Shankar for these two times.
Grazie mille, thank you.
I would love you to be together with us in the next workshop as a co-host. Anyhow, you know that we have talked about that before. And because you have a beautiful contribution. And I think the girls really, really like the way that you're explaining, even though you're not a girl. I think you have a very feminine and beautiful way of bringing things up and touching women's hearts. So thank you for that. Thank you for making the effort for that. And I don't know if you girls have something else that we can close for today and keep it for the next week, same time. Thank you so much for being here.
I want to thank Aliki for inviting me both times. And I had no idea how the class would go. Each time there's that apprehension, especially doing it on the internet. This is my second time doing it using social media because there's not that face-to-face visceral feeling, right? We're not looking at each other's emotions. We can't smell each other, we can't touch each other and so on. But it's working.
Yeah, you can see by the end of the class how much engaged somebody is, or, you know, and because it's a longer workshop, so it's very easy for people who get to get disengaged. But I think that was not an issue neither the first nor the second time. So thank you for that.
So thank
and
you.
we take it for to the next week for with all questions. Thank you, girls. Have a beautiful day or night whenever you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, Belly.
Love.